Welcome back to the Spector Creative channel with me, your host, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich. And I have been lucky enough to have been employed in the toy industry, and not only that, but to have gotten to be brand manager on lines that I actively collect and love. I've gotten to work on Justice League, and I've gotten to work on Masters of the Universe Classics and Star Wars Big Figs. When I was at Mattel, a brand like Masters of the Universe it wasn't a job I could just apply for and start with because, well, honestly, Masters of the Universe was considered a dead brand at the time. So this wasn't the job I started at. Eventually, I worked my way over towards being brand manager of Masters of the Universe, but the job that I was hired into Mattel, my first job in the toy industry, was in the wonderful world, and I do mean that, of Hot Wheels packaging. And that meant I was in charge of a lot of what you see here, coming up with names and handling the legal issues and the trademarks. And basically, if it's a word on a package, that was my job. I was a copywriter for Hot Wheels. Now, while I worked for Mattel, I didn't work in their corporate office. This is where basically accountants and lawyers work. I worked down the street at the design center, where on the bottom floor, the people who actually design the toys work. It's a two-story building. I worked up on the second floor, right about here. If you were to walk through that window, that's about where my group was. So this is where the packaging group was, on the second floor. We could look down at the designers all in their cubicles, and that's basically what it looked like. It was a giant cubicle farm, just like any other company. It wasn't exactly, Willy Wonka's chocolate river. And we would spend our day not just designing packaging for toys, but really deep diving into what might be thought of as the art of packaging and understanding and really trying to find new ways to package consumer goods, because there was always requests from retail and environmentalist groups, which trickles down to, corporate mandates, to find better ways of packaging product with less packaging, if you will, and that meant dealing with things like Flute here, which was one of the main cardboard stocks that's used, as well as things like blister cards. Finding ways, can we use a thinner plastic? Well, will you still see the figure through that? Will it actually block them out? There were so many things to consider when you're trying to change material to, meet up with different needs. Now, this group was led by Ricardo Crespo. He was I don't know, was he a vice president? Well, he was definitely a high-up director, maybe a senior director of the Hot Wheels packaging group. And there were about 10 of us in the group. Ricardo actually used to be, and I'm dead serious about this, the stunt double for Sarah Michelle Gellar from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes, that was his job before he was in Hot Wheels packaging.
Don't believe in Google it.
So some of the other people I worked with went back to Mattel all the way to the He-Man days. In fact, one of the members of our team, Bill, worked on the original vintage He-Man line. In fact, he was the packaging designer who came up with that little dimple that presses into He-Man, which he explained to me was used to keep him in place. That's why he invented it. And it wasn't just, Hot Wheels packaging designers that I got to meet. I met, of course, all of the guys who designed the toys, too, because we had to constantly connect with them. Larry Wood was the designer of this car here, and I got to name his car. I got to name it Straight Pipes, which was a huge honor. Larry Wood is a very legendary Hot Wheels designer. I also worked on track sets and entire sort of like sublines, like this was Turbo Glow, which was kind of a Fast and the Furious type line with motorized cars. I partnered with a graphic designer. Every copywriter would be teamed up with a graphic designer to come up with the line look for each individual sort of subline, if you will. And I'm giving you all of this because it's an important background, because even sublines like Modifighters here still use the Hot Wheels blue as their main color, so it could be identified as a Hot Wheels product, even though in this case you're dealing with something that was probably the farthest from Hot Wheels, which was basically transforming robots, which was a Hot Wheels kind of attempt to do a sort of Transformers type execution. In fact, I was able to sneak in a character named Spector, even with a spade on the side of the car there in the Quick Changers line. All right, so regardless of what it was, it had to be identified as a Hot Wheel toy. And this was using structure, which is how a package is shaped. And you'll see all sorts of structures at retail, ranging from very innovative to very, I guess you could say, conservative, where you'll instantly be able to recognize a product based on what the packaging looks like. And this is also done through color. And this is all I'm actually laying this out deliberately because while you see lots of innovative packaging at market, for the most part, toy lines tend to retain the same look and feel. We even did experiment with things like, I remember specifically we looked at a shampoo bottle like this that was packaged to appeal to men. It was a shampoo designed for men or men's hair, because it looked like something else men use, which is motor oil. I mean, not that women can't use motor oil, but the packaging, the body of the product was deliberately designed to remind men of motor oil, something that they may handle in their hobby or their job. And then, of course, there's also the whole Amazon factor, where Amazon is less interested in packaging as much as keeping the item safe while making it easy to open for the end customer. And that's what we're getting to, is the end customer. And even companies like Mattel and Lego have done Amazon easy open packaging to make it easy. All right, what's the point? Why am I going over all of this stuff about the background of working in packaging? It's because it's all about the end user, and that's what I want to get to. The idea is, when you're wondering who is packaging for, why is all this packaging designed for a toy that's probably going to get ripped open and thrown on the floor? Well, one thing to look at might be the adult collector, which of course is legitimate. It's about 20% of sales of toys are to adult collectors, and that's a significant factor. And there are a lot of adult collectors, of course, that open their toys and pretty much they go on a shelf and get displayed. And there's also I know there are also adult collectors, myself included, that keep things in package and display them, if you will, as sort of works of art, as a toy on a card or in a box, and they enjoy displaying it this way just as much as they enjoy displaying it loose on a shelf. So, again, like hanging art. But the number of adult collectors that keep items in package, we're dealing with a small slice of what's already a small pie. So you've already got a small section of the overall buying public and then a very small section of that. So, tiny piece of pie. So if we're not designing packaging for the adult collector, who is it being designed for? Who's that end user? Well, obviously, one of those end users is the person shopping and buying the toy. And data shows it's usually mom. No offense to dad, grandma, aunt, uncle, or stepsister, but mom statistically is the one doing the purchasing. And sometimes you have the child with you to point out what toy they want, but other times it's the package that acts as the first communication point between consumer and product. The packaging has to tell you what it is, what the features are, is there a try me, will my child or adult collector friend or husband or myself enjoy this. And again, I'm not trying to be sexist saying women do the shopping. I'm just saying I've seen the statistics, and most toys that are for children are bought by women, so by mom. And of course, one of the payoffs is giving it to the child and having them unwrap the product and seeing the packaging. That's the first thing they're going to see, unless of course you've assembled the playhouse or the dollhouse ahead of time. Most children, when they unwrap it, they're seeing the packaging, and that's communicating what they're getting. And most likely the packaging is then being ripped apart and torn open, the toy extracted, and the packaging is discarded. So all that work done just to wind up in the trash. All right, so that brings us to the true end user. So while it's great to advertise to the parent buying the product, to the collector displaying the product, it really is about a place for everything and everything in its place, as Benjamin Franklin said. He was the original one to say that. But I've heard many people say that. But I guess they're stealing it from him when they say that, or quoting him. So who is the person that's putting everything in their place at retail? Well, it's the stock person. Used to be called a stock boy or a stock girl. I think we're using stock person these days. And everything that is stocked at retail is done with what's called a planogram, meaning a planned out map of where everything is going to sit on shelf. And you will see this for every single type of consumer product, whether you're dealing with batteries or scented candles or carrot sticks or action figures or Barbie dolls. Everything gets put into a planogram. And this is because it's trying to maximize, one, the amount of space to make it look nice for the consumer, but also to measure sales based on space. Toys have to justify their spot in aisles, kind of like real estate that it takes up. And each product, no matter what it is, has to justify the amount of physical space it takes on the peg or the shelf by the amount of sales it does. And the planogram is the key to measuring this. And please excuse the fact that my cat is meowing in the background. There's not really much I can do about that at the moment. Okay, so back to the planogram. So with every item being scientifically and measured out to go in one spot, then why is it certain colors, certain structures are used to create familiarity? Well, obviously, one, it is for that customer who's shopping it, and that's pretty much about 30% of the time. But 70% of the time, the reason toy packaging is designed based on colors and shape that are familiar to the end user is to communicate to the stock person where to put it. So you'll see here some Power Ranger figures that are stocked on what should be G.I. Joe Signature Series pegs. Well, why is it hard to know where these go? Why is the stock person just putting it on a random empty peg? The reason is because, in this case, G.I. Joe Classified was supposed to ship with the Snake Eyes movie set. It means not movie set, meaning the set. That's what you call it when you put out new toys. It's a toy set. You're setting them. And when the Snake Eyes movie was pushed out because of COVID, the only product that shipped was the non-movie product, which was the not Signature Series, the Classified Series. So because it didn't have a full planogram like Star Wars here, it was an orphan SKU. And that makes it very difficult for the stock person to know where to put it. Yes, there's a peg that says it goes here, but the stock people are moving very quickly, opening boxes, putting stuff out, and trying to do it efficiently. And while there's a safety issue involved, there's also a speed issue. And the reason branding and packaging is created to have a familiar look and feel is for the stock person. It's so that they know where to put it. Yes, it's for the parent buying it, but 70% of the reason toys are packaged the way they are, with the colors they are, is so that they'll be placed in the right place at retail, so the stocking person, the person putting the product out, knows where to put it. That's why we package toys. Crazy, isn't it? All right, I know my cat Kiki liked this video. I hope you did. And yes, thank you, Kiki. We can all hear you in the background. Please give this video a like, and subscription helps tell YouTube to share it with more people. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.